Okay, we're on the Did we have an opening?
Yes, we
That
did.
was it.
That was an intro?
It was kind of an intro.
Well, this is a professional show.
Truncated.
Welcome to Song Talk Radio, episode 288. This is the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of songwriting. We share tips, tools, techniques, needles, and together we all become better at writing songs.
We do not share needles.
No, don't share needles, kids. Not even if you're knitting. I'm your host, Mike Proudfoot, and with me are the clean living members of the Song Talk Radio Action team. We have Fortified Phil.
Thanks very much. Happy to be here. And very excited to be here because this is like my people.
Your peeps?
My people, I think.
Excellent. Our
Yes.
special guest he's talking about. Nutritious Neil.
Oh, thank you very much. And just for the record, I'll take macrame over knitting needles any day.
Really?
So,
Crochet?
yeah.
No?
Crochet, yes. Thank you.
On social media tonight, we have Riboflavin Rita, who doesn't have a mic, so she's saying something.
He's all confused.
So, yeah. And on the tech board, it's Multivitamin Micah.
Yeah.
And thumbs up.
Having his sugar drink.
And during the show, send your comments and questions to @SongTalkRadio on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or feedback at songtalkradio.ca, and we will share them all with the audience. And please visit us at songtalk.ca to find out how you can be a guest on the show. All right. In the early 80s, legendary Toronto punk band Stark Naked and Fleshtones were one of the top live acts on the scene. During that time, though, the band never released a proper album of material, just bootleg cassettes and the odd video clip. They were primarily a live act. And sadly, in 1984-ish, the band called it quits. But happily, in around 2011, two of the founding members put the band back together, released a proper album, recorded at Mushroom Studios, no less, and have been reclaiming their rightful place as one of Toronto's best live acts. We're here at Song Talk. We here at Song Talk wanted to hear more about how a live act writes its material, what makes for a great live performance, and maybe even some stories from the early days of punk in Toronto. Without further ado, from Stark Naked and the Fleshtones, here are singer Stark Naked and guitarist Eugene Ripper. Well, welcome, fellas.
Woo!
Welcome, guys. Thanks for being here.
Very nice to be here. Hello, hello.
Very excited to be. I think this is great. I'm very happy to get one of the classic punk bands from Toronto. It was an amazing scene back then.
Let's start back then. Do you remember back that far? So how'd you guys get together? The original band we'll start with.
We were all close friends growing up. Like we grew up together. The 3/4 of the band we'd known each other since kindergarten.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was pretty unique. We all grew up together, went to school together, played sports together. All sort of did the same thing, you know. And when we just evolved, it's like well, let's start a band and make some music. And we had been fooling around in the garage before that with other. With no intention of forming a band, just doing
for
hanging
fun,
out. Yeah, because that's what we did, right? So we would, just hang out, and then one thing led to another, and then when we first started hearing about punk rock in the late '70s, we're going, well, this is kind of interesting, and these guys are spitting at reporters in airports. This is fun, you know. It's like, so we thought, let's start a punk rock band since we already had basically the bare bones. We had drums, we had a basement, we had everything set up. So we evolved into a punk rock band, although we had never heard punk rock. So we started writing punk rock songs, even though we hadn't heard any because it wasn't really. It was tough to hear what punk rock was back in the late '70s.
Right,
so
it wasn't getting played on the radio.
There was no means, they wouldn't, So, and there was no internet, so you just sort of, what is this, right? So
where did you guys end up hearing it then?
Well, finally went downtown to, the record peddler, found out about some underground, we started going to see shows and stuff like that. Just we'd see flyers downtown.
Okay.
And then we'd go see a show and it's like, okay, this is it. This is,
gotcha.
I've never seen anything like this before, right? And we all just got hooked. And then, but it was basically just for our own enjoyment. We had no intention of becoming a band and playing in bars. We were 17, 18, 19, right? And we just wanted to have fun and do stuff and hang out. So then I met Bruce in high school, and he was sitting beside me, back of the class, for some reason, And I noticed he was jotting notes of music. I go, what, you a musician? And we started talking, and I go, well, our bass player just disappeared. We haven't seen him for a few weeks.
Were you worried?
And well, he moved in with a young lady, and So he just disappeared. So he moved downtown and disappeared because we were living in North Toronto, basically, is where we hung out, and we were all from. So all of a sudden, we didn't have a band anymore. We had vocals, drums, and a guitar player. So I said to Eugene here, would you like to come out and make some noise with us and try and fill out the sound a little bit? I know you're not a bass player, but, come out and hang out.
How hard can a bass be? It's only 4 strings, right?
Well, I was still playing guitar. Stark and I met in high school, and I had sort of found my own way into punk rock, as a lot of people were around that time discovering this sound. And the other thing that I liked to do was sit in my basement, but this was by myself, with my guitar and just make songs up.
Right.
I'd just make a racket. I just loved making a racket. I didn't really know how to play, but I loved making noise. And the idea to get in a band was great. I didn't really know how to play.
Right.
In fact, by joining the band, I learned how to play in a band before I actually learned how to really play. I knew 3 chords and how to stop and start. That was
What more do you need?
That was pretty punk rock. I mean, Mark, Freddie Fondue, the HUD, the original guitar player, was really, him and Sully were, but Mark was the only one that really kind of knew how to play in a way that he could hear something on, and he could figure out and show everyone how to play. And it was, and that was, I think, in '79, and then we, one thing led to another, and we found ourselves, at the Horseshoe Tavern on Queen Street in May of 1980, doing the first kind of public show. And
that's a pretty good place to kind of debut downtown.
I was terrified.
But before the Horseshoe, can we backtrack a little bit and just talk about how you guys started writing the songs? Or did you go to Horseshoe with no songs?
Well, I mean, there was sort of 2 sides to it. I'd like to hand that over to Stark because, in terms of the lyrics and the attitude, I was more of a guitar riff guy. I'd bring that to songs, but maybe.
Did they start with the lyrics, with the idea for the song?
Basically, pretty well every song we did started with lyrics first.
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow.
And that was our lyrics. The common denominator is a sort of a sense of humor and sense of irrelevance, and we didn't take anything seriously. That was our thing, right? It's just so we're going, okay, let's start a punk rock band, and then okay, so let's write a song. So our first song was "I Hate You."
Well, that makes sense.
And our second song was "Sit on My Face." But I think that might have been from our earlier band that we brought that back.
Was that a ballad?
No, I think it had 1 chord. Yeah. And then after that, we had songs like "Stay Away from My Kids," "Suburban Chump,"
Parental guidance.
They're all just they were sort of comments on our lives at the time.
Right.
And they were just sarcastic and
So you
witty.
guys would write all lyrics as a band together, or was it mostly coming from you?
Mostly our drummer, Sully.
Okay.
Sully, our drummer, and I would do most of the lyrics, I guess.
Okay.
Sometimes we would get together on the telephone, holding a telephone in our hand and talking at the same time, going, you write a verse, I'll write a verse, blah, blah, blah. We'll get back together and we try and make each other, the other guy laugh harder,
Right.
Cool. So
that was the
That's a good
goal.
way to do it.
That was the goal.
So for someone in the band, and we were going to come in with some music at some point, but at rehearsals, I always knew that something good was cooking if Stark and Sully were kind of off in the corner laughing. If they were together laughing their heads off, I know, okay, they got something. They got something good, right? That fits this off-the-wall humor, satirical bent, which they were really good at. I got the joke, so that I could roll with it. I love the humor. I wasn't quite as good at it as they were in terms of writing that stuff, but you kind of had to get the joke to really kind of roll with the whole thing. Because if you didn't get it,
Right.
no one's going to explain it to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Sully and I would come up with the lyrics, but the fact that we've known each other since we were 5 years old, and you know, it would really help. Like we, you know, it was like you could, you know, it was like
You can almost.
You're not going to be shy about.
It's like, you know, it's so
Goofy.
funny, right? And we're just trying to make. Before that, we'd written an entire satirical school newspaper together, just for something to do, right?
Right.
So like ads, you know, everything, you know,
wow.
blah blah blah. Like so, creative writing was one of our things that we enjoyed doing, and we like his father was a writer, a sports writer, and my parents always, you know, if I used poor grammar or something like that, I would be corrected immediately, you know. So, and we'd try and make each other laugh with big words and that sort of thing, you know. So it's like we'd pull big words on each other and that sort of thing. So, you know, that was just sort of part of the thing. It was just like, let's write some funny songs and have a message.
So when you write the lyrics, are you guys thinking of melodies at the same time, or are you waiting for the guitar riffs to come down and then you sing it out, or how did that work?
Sometimes, yeah, and sometimes we just hand the words to the lyrics to the guitar player to HUD and go, here's the lyrics, come up with something, right? Because like Bruce was saying, Eugene was saying, he was always coming up with, you know, he'd have different. He was always noodling around, coming up with different things. So.
Yeah, or they'd hand it to me.
Yeah, or Eugene would come up with stuff, you know, and they both had different styles.
Make a song out of this, would you?
Yeah.
Or we come in. See, this is where it gets fuzzy because we were really stoned and drunk a lot, and
no one was
way to go.
dancing.
and we'd get in the room together, and we just one of our ethos was going to play really loud, and we're going to get into it. So we would get very into it viscerally and throw everything we had into these like 3 or 4 chords that we had. Like, it was pretty legit in terms of just the attitude of, hey, we saw the Ramones do this. We can do it too. We've seen Dee Dee Ramone. Wow, anybody can do this.
Right.
But you know, that I was trying to think of the process of once it all sort of came into the room. You know, we'd play it. You know, we'd probably argue a little bit.
A lot.
A lot.
Of course.
And then we'd come up, hey, we need a weird part, which was our way of a middle eight or a bridge. We called it a weird part. And that was always...
We weren't that sophisticated.
And we had another rule of thumb was, and this was very punk rock, I think, and this was something that was coming from Sully. He would drive this at the drums. There could be no uncalled force.
What does that mean?
No extraneous noodling, diddling. It had to be,
no frivolous kind of.
Well, everything had to sort of say, okay, we're at the basics here, and is there any reason to go beyond that?
Right.
And do you have the capacity to go beyond that? Which is always an important consideration, right?
Well, it was like straight ahead punk, you know, and most bands were pretty straight ahead. But you had some bands like Fear who did all sorts of wacky time signatures, and I mean, they're fantastic.
They'd be incredibly sophisticated musicians working within like the punk genre. You guys, Chris Spedding and the guys in behind the vibrators and the Stranglers, and the Toronto scene was pretty. You know, there was a lot of. It was pretty pure, I think, in terms of a whole bunch of people that couldn't play.
Musicians in disguise, you're saying?
Not as many as maybe some of the other scenes.
It's really interesting when you talk about band dynamics that way, right? Because it's not. We talk about process here. We try to break it down into the individual little things, but it's not necessarily Bernie Taupin and Elton John. Where it's like here's a sheet of lyrics, make me a song, and then next thing you know is a song. With a band, there's a lot more back and forth, and you know, maybe a riff comes first, maybe a lyric comes first, maybe part of it sort of shapes as you guys are jamming and as you guys are just sort of hashing stuff out, right?
For sure, especially on the like the rock and roll side, the sonic thing. The from my observation, just with the way Sully and Stark really crafted the stuff that stood the test of time, like a lot of the songs Stark was talking about, you know, from the teenage perspective, or you know, kind of flipping the bird to society as we saw it. That stuff's fallen off. The stuff that's stood over time is really, you know, really good, funny, fun-loving, good gags. You know, something about it,
right.
and that stuff is you know, was pretty special. And then the way we made it a rock and roll song, like those lyrics right there, they could stand up just as lyrics, you know.
Right.
There's a lot of them.
And look at
Well,
that printing. You talk about his parents instilling a sense of grammar in Stark Naked. This man,
calligraphy.
you can't see this on
We'll take
radio,
a
but
picture and
this
post
is
it
some
on
of
the site.
this is some of the finest printing you'll see in the Canadian rock and roll scene.
Well, we'll put that on the website afterwards.
Yeah.
So you can get.
And so you guys have written lots of songs, but you brought two with you tonight.
Yeah,
Can
we
you
should
talk about
take a
the first
listen.
one? What is it?
Which will go first?
What's it called?
Teenage Stockbroker or Marry Your Mother? Which,
Whatever you prefer.
Well, we always open the show with "I Was a Teenage Stockbroker,"
That's right.
and that was one of the reasons that we decided to bring that one in.
okay, well, great.
And again, this is like Stark can talk about the lyrics, and you know, I could talk a little bit about the production. I guess
Sure.
that would be.
Well, should we? We'll take a listen and we'll talk about it afterwards.
Sounds good.
All right. Does it need setting up in any way, shape, or form?
Just crank it.
Yeah, you want to listen to this loud.
Okay. I was a teenage stockbroker. I was a teenage stockbroker by Stark Naked and the Fleshtones.
So
It sounded really good, you know, for a punk rock song. It's nice and clear and well recorded. How'd that come about?
Well, the thing about this recording is in the early 90s, we did a 15th anniversary tour. We did a bunch of shows in Toronto, and then we went out to Vancouver with Greg Sullivan, the original drummer and songwriter, was part of that band, that version of the band. And we knew the band, always knew the band was a great live band. Anytime we had tried to record previously, it really didn't match the live show.
Yeah, it's hard.
And the thing was, is we were recording the band incorrectly. And we learned that in a terrible lesson when we spent a lot of money in the early 80s with a big-time producer at a big-time studio, and it just turned out to be mostly junk. And there was maybe one tune that was salvageable from it. So this time, we toured for 2 weeks. Band was smoking hot. And fortunately, I had been living in Vancouver, and I had some friends who had a friend who was the manager at Mushroom Studios, Valerie. And when we were in town, we just got lucky, and there was an afternoon open at the studio, and they said, you guys can come in for a cookie, give us $100 to keep the electricity on. Another friend of mine was a musician out there, got an engineer in, and we produced this session live off the floor. So that is about as live as the band could be. No overdubs. We had Sully, we used to call him the Big Beat, driving it. Stark's performance was on the roll after 2 weeks of shows, but we benefited from this amazingly wonderful studio, the magic room of Mushroom Studios, world famous studio in Vancouver.
What was the thing that you did learn from the bad situation, like going through with a big studio and a big engineer?
Well, I think what we learned over time was that you've got to be able to kind of know what, it's hard to be, when you're the actor, it's hard to be that step beyond to see. I don't think we knew it at the time, but we probably should have pushed back a bit when we felt like we were being taken out of our comfort zone. I think we were we wanted it to work so well, and we felt like if we're working with a good producer and we're working in a good studio, and it wasn't that the producer was bad, he just wasn't the right producer at the time for the band.
Was there also a little bit of, this is how a record's supposed to be done, so we got to do it this way kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, there was just a different approach. It was more of a pop approach to recording, as opposed to putting a box of beer in the middle of the room, everybody getting loose and doing rock and roll.
Yeah, and it's so true. Like, a producer can have a lot of influence, and some producers can bring in the artist and make them better than they ever thought they could be, and other ones can just be the wrong ones, and it can be the wrong mix, and it's terrible. I've been in that situation too, and you're sinking lots of money into it, and halfway through you realize, in my situation, I realized this guy had no idea what he was doing, and that was really a terrifying thing to realize.
Yeah. We basically had one vision, and these guys had a different vision of what we should sound like and that sort of thing. And it's like, that's not who we are, and it was just a total clash. And
I want to ask you something about, I don't know your whole oeuvre of music, but is there like a hard rule, punk songs cannot be over 3 minutes long? Like, is that something you guys think about deliberately? It's like, we can't go over 3:30.
Do you have rules for the kind of songs you write, or a filter that they go through to the past?
I mean, you were saying before about no frivolous stuff. Is that part of it?
Well,
Streamline it. And
no one called for us. I remember that all the time.
Yeah, sometimes if you had an idea, you'd run it past the rest of the band, and we'd just go yay or nay. It was like, it was a democracy, right? It was a very democratic process, and if we liked it, it was like, yeah, let's do it, but if it got the gong, it's just like, no, forget it, right? It's like, now you've crossed the line.
So the rock opera got thumbs down?
Well, it was a tough crew to be around, especially with Starkey and Sully, because, they had a very, very strong sense of humor and wit, and like Stark said, they've been honing this for years together, so, you couldn't really come in with something that was taking yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
That was never going to work.
That was a bad one.
In fact, for me to sort of try and do something that was like, I would call a little more like artsy, I had to start a solo career. It wasn't going to fly within the ethos of Stark Naked and the Fleshtones.
Yeah.
Ripper, no, you cannot bring an acoustic guitar on stage.
Yeah.
So when you guys were playing live,
down boy.
With the thing about punk is, like I was in a punk band, and you do play these 3-minute songs, which is great. That also means your set needs to have like 35 songs. But now, did you play the songs longer than you would in the studio? That's a question I've always wondered. Like, did you do like the 3 verses, or
these guys started live?
We never had an issue with how long a song could be. It was more or less how long it took to get the story out.
Okay.
And just how fast it was, right? So it's like, if it's, we had songs that were less than 2 minutes, and we had songs that were probably 4 minutes.
Right.
Okay. And we wrote so many songs. Like, when I think about like how many songs that we actually play now, we might just play over
30% of everything.
And it's just a drop in the bucket of how many songs. Like, I don't even remember the songs
Wow.
that we wrote.
And are you still writing new stuff
Yeah,
as well?
we're still writing new songs right now. So yeah, that's fun.
I got to ask you something. So, just in terms of the lyrics, and you know, always having a sense of humor, and you know, you're saying that you respond to that. What does the audience respond to? Is it the energy, or do they also get the lyrics, and is that part of what they really, what they really respond to? When you play live, what's the feeling? What's the balance?
I would just say it's a combination.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's definitely, and I don't know, I might throw this over to Stark, because I mean, you see people when, you know, you hit the stop and Stark goes, "I want to marry your mother." You know, you just hear people going with that because it's fun, it's wacky, and it's something that's coming out of the blue. You know, you see people singing along. It's a dance band, it's a party band. You know, people had a lot of fun at our shows. People got laid at our shows.
Yeah. During?
At the show?
Generally, we discouraged that. It was fun.
That was the health department that
we were a party
discouraged
band.
There was a VIP ticket. So there was a
And
VIP section.
we tried to push the good vibe, good party.
Yeah,
We weren't dark.
Right.
You know, we're saying let's have some fun, and these are fun songs.
A lot of shows that we played, a lot of gigs. The PAs weren't the best in the world too, you know. So back in the day, so you'd be hard pressed to, you know, understand the lyrics, even if you know. So I mean,
Right,
but
and you guys
like-
didn't have recordings at the time for fans to listen to and be like,
No,
I
we
know what the
didn't.
words to this song are. I can sing along. And that
It was a
sort of
live thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it was totally a live thing,
Yeah.
and the music stood for its on its own. You know, like I mean, even if they couldn't hear you know, some shows I couldn't hear a single word, but it was still great. You know, like you know, it's just like you got the idea, the atmosphere. You could tell like if the energy on stage was usually pretty maximum, and we would try and set the pace for the live show.
Right. If you had a clear PA, that was a bonus.
If you had a live PA, then you could see people laughing. Like,
Right,
you know, like, you know, is
Yeah,
when
yeah.
that's how you know that the PA is good. When I would look out and say something funny and people would start laughing, right? So it's like, okay, the sound's
They're getting
good.
it, they're getting it.
Getting through.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so it's one thing to get, you know, into the groove of the beat and the riff and the energy of it, but then to actually hear the words and respond to that is something different.
All right. Well, we will be right back. We have a few messages from sponsors and important
Blah, blah,
words
And folks.
and folks, and we'll continue with this. It's a suppository.
And for those of you just joining us, you are listening to Song Talk Radio, streaming on songtalk.ca. And tonight we are talking to Stark Naked and Eugene Ripper from Stark Naked and the Fleshtones. And they are stark naked. Too bad you're not here. Don't forget, we
Good
love
for
to
the
hear from
radio.
you, even during the show. So why don't you send us your thoughts, suggestions, and guacamole recipes to us at Song Talk Radio on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or send us an email to feedback@songtalk.ca. Yes, that's feedback@songtalk.ca, and we'll share your questions with the guest and the audience. Coming up over the next couple of weeks is September 10th. We're talking to Taylor Abrams, and he was in before. There was the
Taylor and Bryn a few years back.
yes, and they were didn't they do? Were they the ones with the harmonicas?
Well, Bryn was the fellow with the harmonica, with the box of harmonicas. All
Yes, that
different
was
things,
great.
and Taylor was the other guy.
Yeah, that's going to be a great
The
show.
guy
Yeah, he
without
was
the
amazing.
harmonicas. That was.
The guy without the harmonica.
Okay.
And on September 17th, we're having one of our special movie shows. We're talking about Yesterday, which imagines a world in which the Beatles never existed. And I've seen it. It's a great movie. I'm going to see it again this next weekend, I think. So, and if you happen to be in the Toronto area, why don't you join us for the next Song Talk meetup on Sunday, September 22nd from 1 to 4 p.m. at the Transat Club. Free to join on meetup.com. Free to attend the meetup. Stop by songtalk.ca for the link to the meetup. Back to you.
Punk music is invited.
Yes, all punks.
All the time.
All the time.
You were saying something about, or was it fit for the radio? About DOA?
Well, when we went to break, we were talking about the energy the band tried to bring, and just as Stark said, we really tried to set the pace, and that was part of even when it was in the garage in the basement, was even when it was just a closed little club, when I first joined, and then it started to evolve, into a public act. We were always going to get into it, right? Because that was, part of the punk ethos was giving it everything.
Yeah,
you had.
not going through the motions ever.
Yeah, and what I was saying about the DOA stuff is we did some shows with these guys, and they were an incredible live band. This is with Chuck Biscuits on drums and Randy Rampage on bass, and they were all over 6 feet tall, and they had done like a 40 city tour through the U.S., basically having to fight their way out of Texas, and they just played so hard and so fast, and we looked up to these guys, like, wow, this is DIY, this is attitude.
I thought it was DOA.
See, that's why he writes the funny songs.
We got a million of them, folks.
He'll be here all show. And Joe Keithley, we were saying, "You got any advice?" And he said, "Well, never compare yourself to the world." I mean, I remember that was kind of wild. But he said, also, you hit that stage like it's your last day on earth. Like the last time you're doing it is this time. And that's something that, was pretty easy to get around. So we would sweat a lot. We were jumping around like crazy. I mean, Stark was on fire as a performer. He hasn't really, he's only slowed down a little bit, not much at all.
It is a tough thing.
Does the walker interfere with your performance?
That walker is on fire.
Yeah.
It is tough though when you have
caught up in
a
the
band
chords.
that is so live, is trying to capture that in the studio. Because there's a couple of bands in Toronto that are my favorite bands, and I love them. I see them, and they did a CD, and I was so excited. I went, great, and I took it home, and I went, oh, because they just didn't have that magic. It's a tough thing to capture.
It happens to. I mean, I don't think Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band have ever captured it.
Yeah.
That was something that was always, and you go see, I mean, they do great albums, but then you see their show and you go, how do you get that?
Yeah.
Not that Weir Kuhn, Stark Naked and the Fleshtones are comparing themselves to the E Street Band.
Same phenomenon.
Yeah, same problem.
Same principle.
The one thing I noticed about this, I Want to Be a Stockbroker, is actually the chorus is really, really hooky.
Well,
I
I can take credit for the chorus on that one because
Fine job.
I'm not a great lyricist, but
He was playing hooky that day when he came up with
but
it.
that would be something I would I would be playing in my basement by myself, and ba da 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 da. Hey.
Yeah.
However, it was where Stark took that in the context of that song that he had the payoff line, and there's some vocal jazz.
Yeah.
I use the word loosely. That Stark took that chorus, to a level that brought it up to the humor of the song. But that was kind of my contribution to the core stuff of the Stark material. Was I'd come in with riffs, maybe little bits, arrangement things. And as would Mark, who, when we get to the next track, I Want to Marry Your Mother, that was a signature Mark Foran. We called him Freddie Fondue. HUD tragically passed away way too soon at the age of 27.
Oh, geez.
But he brought the other side of riffage to the band that, I mean, the band wouldn't have been the band without him.
Right.
And he was, again, part of Stark and Sully.
Another guy that we knew since we were 5 years
Grew
old.
up. So there was that Ghost in the Machine was another bit of the secret sauce of the band. Was you can't make that happen. That stuff only happens organically, and you get three buddies their whole lives, all moving in the same direction. You get an interloper like me joining in high school, who got it and just wanted to be part of it, and everybody's moving in the same direction. You put that into a punk rock band on a stage, and something, anyhow, I don't want to go on too much.
People
about that.
respond to it.
Yeah.
I want to ask you guys. You say you're still writing songs currently. Is there anything? What's different now than in 1981?
Stark doesn't listen to my riffs anymore.
Okay,
He's learned.
he's finally caught on.
we still write songs about surfing and the beach. One of our last songs is called Sugar Beach, and it's about Sugar Beach down.
Right. Yeah.
And our latest song is about a girl, our manager, Nicole, and she eats a green potato chip and dies from the solanine poisoning from the potato chip.
Chip girl.
So
that's a warning right there.
You know that you should never eat a green potato chip or a green potato because it
definitely not.
contains solanine, which is poisonous. So.
I did not
What
know
rhymes
that.
with solanine?
This is an educational show. What
so
is
you
solanine?
probably never heard the word solanine in a punk rock or rock and roll song.
No.
And no
sounds great.
song.
Yeah.
I always feel that punk rock has been very lacking in nutritional advice as a genre.
Until now.
You know.
Stark takes longer now to write the songs than he did in the past.
That's true.
Because he is contemplating huge issues like solanide poisoning, right, which is not something you just don't bang that out in an afternoon.
You want to be careful with how you address that issue.
Yeah, in these turbulent and times that we live in.
Times.
There's lots of songs about Hurricane Dorian right now.
Okay.
Only one about solanine.
Any songs about Donald Trump?
No.
Don't go there, right?
Nah.
Too
Nah,
serious.
it's too easy.
Yeah.
Too easy.
Yeah.
And it won't make people happy.
Yeah.
So the band took a break, and what made you come back? I'm curious about that. But it doesn't seem that the songs that you wrote back then, they still connect with audiences that are a bit younger now. I mean, I guess the audience was the same age then.
40,
Maybe
the
band just got a
40-year-olds.
little- But because you still play college gigs and things like that, right? Younger crowds.
Oh yeah, we still have we did an all ages show a while ago, but we also have like a young following now. And it's like some of our friends, their kids come and see us now, and but they have no idea that. I guess some of them realize, but if we just go into a bar and play these songs, they don't realize how old these songs are. They stand the test of time, which is
It's got to be gratifying.
one of the reasons why I can still get up there and do it with with a straight face,
Yeah,
kind of.
that's the real test of a good song is can you play it
Yeah.
35 years later,
Yeah,
40 years later,
they hold up.
and still get still get that charge out of it.
Yeah, and when people that are like 20 or whatever come up and say, "Yeah, I love this song or
Yeah.
that song," it's like, whoa, it makes it all worthwhile,
And there were two driving forces to getting the band back. Primarily, it was Stark, who I think I remember one point we were over having some beers at his place, and it was just kind of somehow came up in a conversation. Do you want to do some stuff? Because for a while you really didn't want to. You're kind of, and then when you did, I mean, because it really, there's no Stark making the Fleshtones without Starky. So. It's not like other bands, I know people say no one's irreplaceable, but you can't replace our front guy. It's not doable. So it really was that push, and there was a sense that around that time it just didn't feel like there was some unfinished business. Because nothing had been really released, and there was a sense, I know from my sense, because I got my eye on the narrative of things. I see, and it seemed like we were being almost erased from our own history, and I know that was a bit of a motivation. For me, I remember having a conversation with Greg Sullivan out in Vancouver, and we're talking about some of these historical websites and books that were coming out, and there wasn't really any mention of not that we were any big thing, but we were a footnote. We had a couple of years where we were one of the top live acts. We were a lot of fun, and it's funny. That's why I think there's so much biography in the world, because people read a book or see something, they go, "That's not how it happened." But there was a little bit of that, but mostly I just remember Stark wanting to, to get a few things done, and wanted to kind of, if it could be done with some style and some dignity, and it could be cool.
Was it a reaction to what music was out there or what music wasn't out there?
No, again,
Nothing like that?
it was just.
Not really. I mean, it's not like I wasn't still playing in between there. Like we were still playing. We had other bands that were playing.
Yeah.
Bruce, Eugene and Ray, same day Ray, our bass player, or our guitar player now, we had other bands that we were playing in.
Right.
I've had
before the Fleshtones got back together.
I've had a completely unsuccessful solo career that just keeps churning.
So have I, interestingly. Yes.
I've been at the top of the bottom of Canadian rock ever since I went beyond the safe confines of good ship stark naked and the Fleshtones. But it's been fun, and I think that's why we continue to do it. We have a good time. People have a good time.
You get good reaction.
We thought, okay, let's get back together. It was, I don't know, it was like 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago when we reformed. We had a gig at the North by Northeast Festival, and it's like, okay, well now we got to get together. So, we got to put a band together. So,
and we had an album of material that we could, kind of say this is we've curated our history. And we didn't really know if we continue, but the important thing is we got invited to North by North East to do a show, and then we said, well, let's drop the curation of our history. So at least we've lifted our leg and taken a good leak on the Toronto music scene, and hopefully left our mark in some fashion. And then we kept on.
We ran it up the flagpole to see if anyone would salute.
Yeah, and we did.
Let's hear another song.
I guess having some recorded material makes it easier to plant your flag. Yeah.
You gotta. It's all part and parcel, for sure.
Well, let's take a listen to what is this?
I Want to Marry Your Mother.
I Want to Marry Your Mother. Stark Naked and the Fleshtones.
1, 2, 3, 4. I wanna marry your mother, 'cause you don't turn me on. Say goodbye to your daddy, oh, I'm running with your mom. I wanna marry your mother, 'cause baby you're no fun. We're flying down to Rio to spend some time in the sun. Some people say a love like ours is the sickest of the sick, the sickest of the sick. Your mommy really thrills me, daddy wants to kill me now. Ain't that a kid? Ain't that a kid? Cruising down the avenue, your mom and me, that makes two. Tell me what's a man to do? What's it meant to do? You know I love her through and through. There's no excuse. That's the truth. I hear sad shit. God bless you. I wanna marry your mother, 'cause you don't turn me on. Say goodbye to your daddy. Oh, I'm running with your mom. I wanna marry your mother, 'cause baby you're no fun. We're flying down to Rio to spend some time in the sun. Some people say that older women are the cat's pajamas. Meow, meow, meow. Daddy ever catches me between the sheets with your mommy, then I will be history. Pow, pow, pow. Get me wild, drive me wild, calm me down and make me mild. Sunday teacher, bear myself, bear my child. Want your mother like no other, run away, go undercover, say bye to your husband, daughter and brother. I wanna marry your mother, 'cause you don't turn me on. Say goodbye to your daddy, oh, I'm running with your mom. I wanna marry your
I Want to Marry Your Mother.
Wow.
Stark Naked and Fleshtones. Great. And modulation.
And had
Everything.
modulation at the end, which is a very effective technique.
Yes.
And so now you guys are a jazz band, I guess. So you know.
That's what we used to say.
This is our mature work.
Yeah.
And a song with a very kind of classical chorus, not just two lines, but actually a chorus, which is a fully fleshed out four-line
And you
chorus.
start the
which is
song with the
interesting.
chorus.
Yes, we
Yeah.
do, which is
cool.
kind of different.
Again, jazzy.
Shades of
It's
old time
kinda like-
rock
it's
and
a very
roll.
Beatles
It's
thing
a
to
very
do,
old-time
actually.
rock and roll song.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we were big, Ramones fans, but we were also big Teenage Head fans.
Oh, yeah,
they
they're
left a big influence on us because before we really pulled, the gears to go from first to second and third with the band, as Stark was saying earlier, we used to go see shows.
Right.
So we were the last wave of the first hierarchy of Toronto punk bands,
Right.
and we were the kids that went to the original shows.
Right.
Couldn't play, wanted to get into this punk rock thing, weren't secret musicians, getting into it because this is where it's at. We just wanted to rock and roll. So we'd go and see, all the bands that came through, the Ramones, the Clash, and
Battered Wives?
Battered Wives,
The
Dead
Ugly,
Boys,
the Dishes, plus all the
Vile
local
Tones,
bands.
all the local bands, and Teenage Head, of course, were the best rock and roll band there was.
Yeah.
And we ended up, open. We used to had the same management company after a few years. We used to
Nice.
open up for Teenage Head all the time.
Wow, that's great.
And in those early days, and still to some these days, when I'm making up a rock and roll guitar part, I'm thinking, what would Mark do, or what would Gordy Lewis do, or what And we're all doing Chuck Berry.
Well,
which
and
I've
it's
learned.
interesting. There's kind of two different, streams of punk. You have like the Ramones, which came out of, the Ramones, and then New York Dolls type thing. But then you had the British, which was sort of a bit harder, a bit more kind of like the Pistols, and sort of more of MC5 stuff, a little bit more kind of straighter head, not quite so married to the old 145 rock approach.
Yeah, we were pretty four on the floor. We were really
Yeah.
out of that Ramones, Dolls, Teenage Head, Northeast, Central, North American sound. I mean, we love the other stuff too, but
Yeah.
we were suburban kids, right?
Yeah.
From North Toronto. We're not. We were kind of true to that.
Yeah. You weren't art school
Yeah,
kids.
the other pole is art school or more the blue collar grinders, right?
That's always the image of punk, is that you're coming from below, right? You're coming from down. It's a down.
Well, we
down
were
up
coming
kind
from the
of thing.
basement.
Yeah,
that was
that's
pretty
what I mean.
low.
Like anti-establishment kind of. But is there a punk band that was art school dropouts? Is that a thing?
Well, the Diodes were
Clash.
OCA,
Yeah,
Clash
and I mean,
were-
Well,
Talking Heads
what's
were
the
all
bass player?
RCA.
Talking
Talking Heads
Heads.
really punk.
Early on, I think. First,
Well, yeah. I mean, they were in the same house, different room. It was a
Okay.
pretty big house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd open up for bands any chance we could. We never said no. Like if and we got a reputation for if someone was stuck and they needed a band, they could call us and we'd be there in like an hour.
Nice.
We were ready to go, right? And but I mean, some of the most fun stuff that we did was opening up for people. We opened up for Fred Sonic Smith from the MC5 at the Horseshoe.
Oh, wow.
And we opened up for Sylvain from the New York Dolls at Frankenstein's on Yonge Street.
Jane County,
Jane County and
Jane
Electric
County.
County. Yeah,
All
at
right.
Larry's Hideaway on Halloween.
Dirty Looks,
But so
Led
yeah.
Zeppelin. No. Sorry, I think
Somebody
my
did.
drugs just kicked in.
But yeah, we just had the punk sensibility though.
Yeah.
Even though we were like kids from North Toronto, once we found this, that we knew this is what we wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
And it was it was an interesting scene back then because it was in Toronto. It was very kind of condensed. You had around, on Queen Street, you go to the Beverly, and then, you go to all the clubs. You could actually walk to all the different clubs. You'd see 4 or 5 bands in a night. And I find now the scene, there's lots of music, but it's all spread out everywhere.
And it's really far west.
Yeah. And it's not quite as condensed as it was.
No more
there's
Larry's,
no
no
more
more-
punk rock on Yonge Street.
Everything
No,
everything
venues
was
on Yonge
everything was
Street.
downtown. I mean, we're
Morrissey's
just,
not a
the
venue.
Edge is just a block away. Larry's Hideaway
Edge.
was a block and a half away. Nickelodeon, Upper Lip, Frankenstein's, Gasworks.
I forgot about the upper lip. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love The Edge because it's like you go into a building and you go, you know what would really not work well here at all? Let's have a band in here so that there you have 3 tables who can see and everyone else has to look around this huge stairwell in the center.
Oh, seriously?
Even as a kid, I was just going like, this is a bad building. Why are you doing it? And it was the Garys. I think.
Apparently, the greatest moment that you're talking about is when Gary brought the Sun Ra Orchestra into the Edge, and there were 12 musicians in that tiny room. I think that was the charm. We never played there. Gary
We played there once.
I guess maybe once, but Gary hated us.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said, this is my famous, I love his quote. He goes, you guys sound like the Dead Boys, and the Dead Boys were a nowhere band.
Dead Boys were great.
I know, well, look, man.
It's a compliment.
It was sort of a sideways compliment.
Yeah.
That's Gary, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He goes, I hate you, but I'll book you.
That's all that matters.
That's not a bad
true.
place to be.
So do you have any, from your years of playing live in front of people, and it's one thing to be in a band and practicing in a rehearsal hall, but it's a very different thing to be live and be able to deliver that on stage. Do you have any sort of tips or hints that you could give to,
What should the
people
kids
who are-
know?
Yes,
Oh, jeez.
putting stuff across on stage.
Well, I suggest if you're a band, you have some ritual. And I love the fact that what no one heard is that before we went to air, we did a thing, let's have a great show, and then we all ripped off our shirts and yelled at the top of our lungs, Yahoo, right? Well, we used to do a little thing. It was tongue-in-cheek, but was it a pep talk from you, or we'd meditate? Well, we didn't really meditate.
The meditation
We'd be in a circle, and for some reason I remember Stark used to go, okay, guys, what are we going to do? And we'd all go, we're going to rock. And he goes, I can't hear you. He goes, we're going to rock. And it's, I can't hear you. He said, we're going to rock. All tongue in cheek, right?
Right.
Just for fun. And then I think sometimes we'd hold fingertips and we'd hum. We'd match up. Again, just for fun. But amazingly, in the same way you guys probably do it, it just kind of brings like a
Focus.
So I would
And the
suggest-
alcohol and drugs had nothing to do with that. Of course, there was none of that at all.
Don't do drugs, kids.
But you work well with, you're a good front man. Is it just your personality, or is there things that you're looking for when you go out there, or how do you make that connection?
Just got to have the right mindset, to go out there and just be in the right state of mind, focus, as opposed to thinking about, did I leave my stove on?
Right.
Don't worry
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
If you left your stove on, there's nothing you can do about it anyhow.
Is there a thing where you'd like I'm always like this with the band I'm in. It's like we got to rehearse to the point where you're not thinking about it anymore. You just go out and do it.
Right.
Right?
Well,
Was that a thing with you guys?
whenever the first time that happened, there was just sort of a loss of self when you come
Yeah.
off stage and you just realize, man,
What
I don't
yeah.
remember anything that
Yeah.
just happened in the last 40
Yeah,
minutes.
you just get into that zone and that's it.
That is
right?
something else. I don't know how that happens, and it'd be great if you could do it all the time, but basically you're trying to achieve that. That's the idea, right?
Like catching the wave.
Yeah, just losing yourself in the music and just finding the perfect, catch the right wave,
I think the thing about the ritual is a great idea. That's something you just learn through experience. But I think it does work.
Ours was tongue in cheek, but yeah, it was.
But even you take that moment and everyone's pointing in the same direction metaphorically, right?
Yeah.
You're all
Yeah.
focused on something, even if it is to make fun of it.
Yeah.
it kind of works, and
Talking about golf makes you a better golfer.
That's true.
There you go.
My band used to shake hands at the beginning because we were all dressed as business guys, and that was sort of our look. So we started off with the guy saying, "Have a good show, Mr. Mark. Have a good show."
Time to
There
check
you go,
in.
yeah, Set the tone.
Did yeah. So
Half the time, I wasn't even speaking to the other members of my band.
yeah.
That works too.
That'll
and then
be
if,
cordial.
if you had gotten really famous, you would have stayed in different hotels when you went to
That's right. Yes, being in a
I think
band
that
is
I
like
get
being in a
disconnects.
bad marriage. Lots of arguments and no sex. Or not nearly enough, depending on how you work.
But you guys have a show coming up on the 21st of September.
Saturday the 21st.
And where would that be so people can come and experience the magic of Stark Naked and the Fleshtones
The
live?
Toronto Island Marina at the Upper Deck Bar. Come and party with Stark Naked and Fleshtones under the stars.
And what says pub more
romantic
than a
evening
marina?
Get
Under
off
the
the ferry, hang a
stars.
right. You'll be there in 5 minutes.
It is one amazing party over there. They do it right, and a great crowd, and and great party.
And the
Oh,
water's
cool.
down now, so there's a dance floor.
Oh, good, low tide. All right. As you can tell by the music, they're throwing us out. Our time is up. It's the end of the show.
Some people get those
say.
ready before.
Yeah, well, it
it's kind of
always
a weird
surprises me. That's all the time we have tonight on Song Talk Radio. Special
done
thanks
it
to our
for a few
guests,
years.
Stark Naked and Eugene Ripper.
Thank you.
Stark Naked.
Woo!
Great stuff.
Thanks,
Thank you for having
Send us
us.
your impressions.
Thank you.
Yeah, do you do impressions? No. Send us your impressions of the show or whatever you want to tell us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Song Talk Radio, or send us an email at feedback@songtalk.ca, and be sure to check out our YouTube channel. Do we even have a YouTube channel?
We do.
Okay. Go check out our YouTube channel and subscribe to Song Talk Radio
Are you
Podcast
new?
on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher.com, Spotify, Podcast Addict, and don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter. You can find all the links to products, books, services, and massages that we mention on our radio show on our resources page at songtalk.ca. And if you're in the Toronto area, come to the Song Talk Meetup Sunday, September 22nd at the Transit Club 1 to 4. Thank you to Micah for
you,
pushing
Micah.
the buttons. Thank you for Rita for being so sociable
you,
on our
Rita.
media. And let me see. We'd like to thank you, our devoted listener. And Phil, say people wanted to find out more about you. How would they do?
They could go to The Filmery on Twitter.
And Neil, say they were curious about your habits.
NeilModi.com is the place to be.
And Micah, do you want to be followed?
I don't have a mic.
He'd love to tell you, but he
You
doesn't
can
have a
tell
mic.
us.
Oh, wait, here he comes.
At Jimmy Micah on Instagram.
There you go. And Rita,
Micah on
I know,
Instagram.
wants to be left alone.
Rita's off the grid.
As do I. I'm
off the
off
You're
the
still
grid.
hiding.
And so, Stark, Eugene, how would people find out more about
What's
you
your
and your
connection?
material and your projects?
StarkNakedandTheFleshtones.com.
All right.
Nice.
And there's a link to our Facebook page, which is Stark Punk Rock on Facebook, the music page.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. That'll do it.
We'll link to that.
Thank you very much for coming in. It was great talking to you.
Delighted
guys.
to be here.
Have a great show on the
Thanks,
21st.
folks.
And
very much.
that's it.
Cool.
Until next time. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Keep on writing.